Have you ever wondered how a 10-minute phone call can generate weeks of national debate about friendship, responsibility, and the true meaning of helping someone? What you're about to discover happened on a quiet Tuesday morning in Atherton, California, when Steph Curry answered a phone call that would change his perspective on loyalty and the weight of promises made during adolescence. At that exact moment, Steph was having coffee in his kitchen when the phone rang, displaying a number he didn't recognize, but something about the North Carolina area code made his heart race slightly. The voice on the other end was familiar, but carried a vulnerability he hadn't heard in 2 decades. "Steph? It's me, Lisa Rodriguez. Lisa from Central Baptist Church in Charlotte. I don't know if you remember me." To understand why this simple conversation would trigger a controversy that would divide opinions on social media and television programs for weeks, we need to go back to the days when Steph Curry was just a shy 16-year-old teenager at a church in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was possible to feel the vibrant energy that characterized Wednesday nights at Central Baptist Church's youth group in the late 90s. The smell of cheap pizza mixed with spilled soda created a welcoming atmosphere where teenagers could be vulnerable about dreams that seemed impossible to the adult world. Steph Curry, then 16 years old, was a skinny and short kid who suffered bullying at school for dreaming of playing in the NBA when he could barely make the high school team. His height of 1.70 meters made him look more like a boy playing basketball than a future professional athlete. "One day you'll see my name on television," Steph used to say during the youth group's conversation circles, always with that shy smile that mixed hope and insecurity. Lisa Rodriguez, 15 years old, was the only one who never laughed when Steph talked about his impossible dreams. She also had a dream that seemed too distant. She wanted to be a pediatric doctor to help sick children, even coming from a family where no one had even finished high school. True friendship is measured in life's most difficult moments, Steph thought, as he listened to Lisa's voice after 20 years, remembering how she had been his only defender during the most difficult years of his adolescence. Naturally, this leads us to realize something profound about connections formed in youth. There are relationships that develop in moments of shared vulnerability when dreams seem impossible and the future is a frightening unknown, but that create bonds stronger than any subsequent success. "Lisa, of course I remember," Steph responded, sitting down in the kitchen chair while memories from 2 decades ago flooded his mind. "How are you? How did you get my number?" The pause that followed was loaded with a weight that Steph immediately recognized. It was the same kind of heavy silence that preceded some of the most difficult conversations of his life. "Steph, I wouldn't call if it weren't a desperate situation," Lisa said, her voice trembling slightly. "I know you must receive 1,000 requests for help, and I never thought I would reach this point. How powerful it is when someone from our past reappears, carrying a story that will test who we have become." Steph could feel he was about to face a situation that would challenge all his values about friendship, success, and responsibility. "Lisa, you can talk to me about anything," Steph said gently. "We're friends." "It's about my daughter, Emma," Lisa continued, each word coming out as if it were physically painful. "She's 8 years old, and she has leukemia. Insurance doesn't cover the experimental treatment that could save her. I'm working 3 jobs, sold everything I had, and I still need $180,000. The silence that followed was deafening. Steph felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. It was impossible not to feel the devastating weight of a mother's desperation fighting to save her daughter's life. "I know how this sounds," Lisa continued quickly, as if she needed to justify the call. "I know you don't owe me anything, but I remembered that night at youth group when we promised we would always help each other if one of us needed it. I know we were just teenagers saying teenager things, but—" "Lisa, stop," Steph interrupted, gently. "That promise wasn't a teenager thing. It was real. And you were always there for me when I needed it." How often do we underestimate the power of promises made in youth, forgetting that sometimes they are the purest commitments we make, free from adult calculations and social expectations? Steph was about to discover that some promises transcend time and circumstances. During the next 10 minutes, Lisa told a story that broke Steph's heart. How she had become a nurse, managing to fulfill part of her dream of helping children. How she had married Robert Kim, an honest mechanic, and they had Emma. How leukemia had appeared out of nowhere 6 months ago, transforming their lives into a desperate race against time and financial limitations. "I tried everything, Steph," Lisa said, her voice breaking. "GoFundMe, charity organizations, loans. I'm $7,000 away from losing our house, but there are still $173,000 missing for the treatment." True friendship is measured in life's most difficult moments, and Steph Curry was about to face a test that would define not only his response to a friend in need, but his understanding of the true weight of having the power to change lives. But what happened next would reveal a truth about loyalty and sacrifice that would test Steph's deepest values about friendship and responsibility. "Lisa, tell me everything," Steph said, walking to the kitchen window while absorbing the magnitude of the situation. "What have you already tried? What kind of treatment does Emma need?" Lisa's response came in broken bursts, as if she had rehearsed that explanation 1,000 times. "It's an experimental CAR-T immunotherapy treatment at Boston Children's Hospital. Only 3 centers in the country do it, and Emma is a perfect candidate. 85% success rate for children her age." You can see that there are moments in life where numbers become more than statistics. They transform into the difference between hope and despair, between life and death. For Lisa Rodriguez, those 85% represented all the difference in the world. "We created a GoFundMe 4 months ago," Lisa continued, her voice gaining a desperate strength. "We raised $17,000. The church did a campaign. We got another $5,000. I sold my car, my wedding jewelry, everything that had value. Robert is working double shifts at the shop." Steph closed his eyes, trying to process not just the numbers, but the human sacrifice behind every dollar mentioned. How devastating it is when we realize that a family is financially falling apart in a desperate attempt to save what matters most. "And charity organizations? Government programs?" Steph asked, genuinely curious about what resources were available. "I tried everything, Steph. Make-A-Wish said they don't cover experimental treatments. St. Jude doesn't accept our case because it's not their research. Medicaid only covers conventional treatments, which have already failed with Emma." Lisa paused for a moment, breathing deeply before continuing. "I'm on the waiting list of 12 different organizations, but they all have years of delay. Naturally, this leads us to a painful understanding of how the healthcare system can fail exactly when families most need support. Lisa Rodriguez was discovering that having health insurance doesn't mean having access to treatments that can save her daughter. "Lisa," Steph said, gently, "can I ask, why me? After 20 years, why did you decide to call me?" The silence that followed was loaded with memories and emotions that Steph could almost feel through the phone line. When Lisa finally responded, her voice carried a tenderness that instantly transported him back to being 16 years old. Do you remember the day Tommy Williams pushed you in the school hallway and said you would never be anything more than a short kid trying to play big people's basketball? Steph remembered. It was a painful memory he had tried to bury over the years, but which still hurt when it resurfaced. I found you crying in the bathroom after class, Lisa continued, and you told me that maybe Tommy was right, that maybe you should stop dreaming about impossible things. The memory came back like a wave, complete and vivid. Steph remembered the humiliation, the pain, the feeling that his dreams were just delusions of a teenager too short for his ambitions. And I told you that Tommy Williams was wrong, Lisa said, her voice now stronger. I told you that you had something special, something that had nothing to do with height or strength. I believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. It's impossible not to feel the transformative power of someone who believes in us during our darkest moments. Steph remembered how Lisa's words that day had planted a seed of self-confidence that grew over the years. You defended me for the rest of high school, Steph said, gratitude evident in his voice. Every time someone doubted my dreams, there you were reminding them that greatness isn't measured in centimeters. Because it was true then, and it continues to be true now, Lisa replied. Steph, I didn't call because you're famous or rich. I called because you're the same person who promised you would always help friends. And I believed in that promise. How often do we underestimate the lasting impact of simple acts of kindness and loyalty during adolescence? Steph was discovering that the support Lisa had given him decades earlier was being called upon in a way he had never imagined. But then, the practical reality of the situation began to settle in. Steph thought about his conversations with financial advisors, lawyers, image managers, who always warned him about the dangers of establishing precedents with personal donations. Lisa, do you have any idea how many requests for help I receive per day? Steph asked, fighting internally between heart and reason. My team says that if I help one person directly, within a week I'll have 1,000 people asking for help. I know, Lisa responded quickly. I thought about that for 6 months before calling. Steph, I never used your name publicly. Never posted about our friendship on social media. Never tried to call attention or pressure you. I exhausted all other options before reaching out to you. How revealing it is when we discover that someone respected our privacy and tried to solve their problems alone before asking for help. Steph felt a mixture of relief and even greater responsibility. And if I help you and this leaks to the media? Steph asked, not out of selfishness, but out of genuine concern for Lisa. Are you prepared for that kind of attention? Steph, my daughter is dying, Lisa said, her voice breaking for the first time. If saving her life means facing reporters and cameras, I'll face them. But I need you to know, I won't use our friendship as currency. If you say no, I'll understand and never bother you again. True friendship is measured in life's most difficult moments, and Steph Curry was about to make a decision that would not only affect Emma Rodriguez's life, but would generate a national controversy about the role of celebrities in society and the true meaning of helping someone in need. No one could imagine that this moment would be the turning point that would completely redefine how Steph Curry understood his social responsibility and the power to transform a personal decision into systemic change. Lisa, I'm going to help, Steph said, after a minute of silence that seemed to last an eternity. But not in the way you're expecting. On the other side of the line, Lisa felt a mixture of relief and confusion. Steph, any way you can help, we will be eternally grateful. I don't want your eternal gratitude, Steph replied, walking through the house as an idea began to form in his mind. I want this to mean something bigger. Lisa, you gave me a gift when you called. You gave me a way to honor our friendship and still create something that can help hundreds of families. You can see that there are moments in life where a seemingly simple decision transforms into something much bigger than its original intentions. Steph Curry was about to transform an act of personal charity into a public statement about social responsibility. I'm going to create a program through my foundation, Steffi explained, his voice gaining enthusiasm. It will be called True Friends Foundation. Families with children needing medical treatments not covered by insurance will be able to apply through transparent and objective criteria. Lisa remained silent, processing what Steph was proposing. It was much more than she had imagined, but also much more public than she had expected. Emma will be our first beneficiary, Steph continued. But I won't do this in secret. I'm going to announce it publicly, explain how the program works, and show that true friends deserve true help, not silent charity. Naturally, this leads us to a deep reflection on the difference between private charity and systemic impact. Steph was choosing to use his platform not just to help a friend, but to create a model that other people could follow. 3 days after the phone call, Steph called a press conference that shocked the sports world. It wasn't about basketball. It wasn't about contracts or injuries. It was about friendship, responsibility, and the power to transform personal situations into social change. I received a call from a friend I hadn't spoken to in 20 years, Steph said, facing dozens of cameras at the Warriors training center. Lisa Rodriguez taught me about true friendship when we were teenagers, and now she needs my help to save her 8-year-old daughter's life. The room exploded in murmurs. Reporters looked at each other, knowing they were witnessing something unusual in the world of sports public relations. Instead of just writing a check, Steph continued, I decided to create something permanent. The True Friends Foundation will help families like Lisa's through a transparent and fair process. How courageous it is when someone decides to be publicly vulnerable about personal relationships and private responsibilities. Steph was betting his reputation on the belief that transparency generates more good than privacy. But the reaction wasn't what Steph expected. In the next 48 hours, the internet exploded with devastating criticism. Christopher Lee, an influential sports journalist, wrote, Curry turned a sick child's drama into a public relations opportunity. This is exploitation disguised as charity. Diana Thompson, a television commentator, was even harsher. If Steph Curry really cared about his friend, he would have helped in silence. This press conference was pure show to improve his image. It's impossible not to feel the devastating weight when our best intentions are interpreted as the worst motivations. Steph watched the criticism multiply on social media, television programs, and sports podcasts. The worst moment came when Lisa called, crying. Steph, I ruined your life, she sobbed through the phone. I didn't know this would generate all this controversy. Maybe we should cancel everything. Lisa, stop, Steph said firmly. You didn't ruin anything. You gave me the opportunity to do the right thing the right way. How? Often are our noblest actions questioned by people who don't understand our true motivations. Steph was learning that doing good publicly always generates more scrutiny than doing good in silence. But then, Steph made a decision that surprised his critics even more. Instead of backing down or defending himself, he doubled down. I'm going to give an interview, Steph said to his advisory team, who were trying to convince him to let the controversy die naturally. I'm going to explain exactly why I did it this way. The interview, which aired a week later on the 60 Minutes program, became one of the most watched of the season. Steph spoke with a brutal honesty that silenced many critics. Lisa Rodriguez taught me that true friendship means showing up when people need it most, Steph said, looking directly at the camera. She showed up for me when I was an insecure kid being bullied at school. Now it was my turn to show up for her. But why do it publicly? Asked the interviewer. Because Lisa isn't the only desperate mother out there, Steph replied. If I had given the money in silence, I would have helped one family. Doing it publicly, I can help hundreds. This isn't about my image. It's about transforming a terrible situation into an opportunity to create real change. Steph's response revealed something his critics hadn't considered. Sometimes the courage to be publicly misunderstood is the price we pay for creating systemic impact. True friendship is measured in life's most difficult moments, and Steph Curry was discovering that defending his convictions amid controversy was one of the purest forms of honoring the friendship that had shaped who he had become. And it was then that the truth finally came to light about what it means to transform criticism into catalysts for lasting change. 6 months after the 60 Minutes interview, something extraordinary had happened. The True Friends Foundation, which had been born amid controversy and devastating criticism, had become one of the most respected and efficient pediatric medical charity programs in the country. 243 families helped, Tyler Brooks, executive director of the foundation, reported during the monthly board meeting. 87% of children in experimental treatments funded by us are showing significant improvement. Steph looked at the numbers with a mixture of pride and humility he had never experienced. Each statistic represented a family that had found hope when everything seemed lost, a child who had a second chance at life. You can see that there are moments in life where our most controversial decisions prove to be the most transformative. Steph's courage to face public criticism had created something much bigger than a single donation. It had created a system of hope. "And Lisa Rodriguez?" Steph asked, although he knew the answer. "How is Emma?" "Emma has been in complete remission for 4 months," Tyler replied, smiling. "And Lisa has become our most powerful spokesperson. She speaks at hospitals, medical conferences, television programs. People trust her because they know she lived the desperation they are living." Lisa Rodriguez's transformation had been as dramatic as it was unexpected. The shy nurse, who had desperately called a childhood friend, had become a national advocate for the rights of families facing pediatric medical crises. "She wants to talk to you," Tyler continued. "She said she has something important to tell you." Naturally, this leads us to understand that sometimes the people we save end up saving us back in ways we could never have predicted. Lisa Rodriguez was about to teach Steph a final lesson about the power of gratitude transformed into action. When Steph called Lisa that afternoon, the difference in her voice was palpable. Where there had once been desperation and vulnerability, there was now strength and purpose. "Steph, I need to tell you something that will sound crazy," Lisa said, her voice loaded with enthusiasm. "You saved much more than Emma's life. You taught me that I have a voice, a purpose." "Lisa, you always had that," Steph replied. "I just helped with the resources." "No, you don't understand," Lisa insisted. "The controversy, the criticism, all of that forced me out of my comfort zone. I had to speak publicly, defend our friendship, explain why you did the right thing, and I discovered I'm good at it." How transformative it is when we discover that our greatest adversities become our greatest strengths. Lisa had found her voice through the necessity of defending the friend who had defended her 2 decades earlier. I want to show you something, Lisa continued. Next month, I'm going to speak in Congress about pediatric healthcare system reform. 4 senators have already committed to supporting a bill inspired by the True Friends Foundation. Steph remained silent, absorbing the magnitude of what Lisa was saying. A mother's desperate call had transformed into a national legislative movement. "And there's more," Lisa said, her voice now trembling with emotion. "Emma wants to meet you. Not as a celebrity, but as Uncle Steph, Mommy's friend who helped when she was sick. It's impossible not to feel the complete power of the circle closing when children we save simply want to know us as people, not as public figures." Steph felt tears forming in his eyes. 3 weeks later, Steph was sitting in the backyard of Lisa's simple house in Charlotte, watching Emma Rodriguez play with a dog the family had adopted after recovery. The 8-year-old girl, with dark hair growing back after chemotherapy, ran and laughed with the infinite energy of a healthy child. "Uncle Steph," Emma said, running up to him with that brutal honesty of children, "Mommy said you're famous, but you seem normal." Steph laughed, picking Emma up. "That's because I am normal, Emma. I just play basketball a little better than most people." "Mommy also said you helped us when I was sick," Emma continued, her eyes big and curious. "Thank you for helping us." How often does the purest gratitude come from absolute simplicity, without big words or dramatic gestures? Emma Rodriguez had summarized 2 years of controversy, and transformation in a single, sincere sentence. Lisa joined them in the backyard, carrying homemade lemonade. "Steph, I want you to know something. Those critics who said you did this for public relations, they were completely wrong." "How do you know?" Steph asked, genuinely curious. "Because people who do things for public relations don't show up on a Sunday afternoon in the backyard of a simple house in Charlotte to play with an 8-year-old child," Lisa replied. "They don't spend hours on the phone calming other desperate mothers. They don't create lasting systems that continue working when the cameras stop filming." The truth about Steph's character had been revealed not through public statements or defensive interviews, but through consistent actions over time. 1 year after that afternoon in the backyard, the True Friends Foundation had expanded to all 50 American states. Lisa Rodriguez had become National Director of Public Policy Advocacy, dividing her time between hospitals, conferences, and congressional corridors. Emma Rodriguez was completely cured and frequently accompanied her mother to foundation events, serving as a living reminder of the program's real impact. The controversy that had threatened to destroy Steph's reputation had transformed into his most lasting legacy. Critics who had once questioned his motivations now cited the True Friends Foundation as a model of how celebrities can use their platform to create real, systemic change. On a cold December night, Steph and Lisa walked through the same church in Charlotte, where they had met as teenagers. The building was decorated for the Christmas season, and the current youth group was rehearsing a play about hope and second chances. "Did you know this story would end this way when you made the decision?" Lisa asked, watching the teenagers through the window. "Honestly? No," Steph admitted. "I just knew I couldn't say no to a true friend. Everything else was a consequence of that simple decision." "Do you regret doing it publicly? All the controversy we caused?" Lisa asked. Steph stopped and looked at Lisa, at the church, at the young people rehearsing inside about hope. "Lisa, if I had given the money in silence, Emma would be cured, but 243 other children wouldn't be. The controversy was worth every criticism, every negative headline, every difficult moment. True friendship is measured in life's most difficult moments, and sometimes The greatest measure of friendship is not just showing up for someone when they need it, but having the courage to transform that act of love into something bigger that benefits people we don't even know. Steph Curry had learned that some promises made in adolescence are not just to be kept, but to be expanded until they touch the entire world.